All right, welcome, guys. This is Breakfast with the Brand, of course, the number one podcast in the world for leaders like you who want to take your brands to the next level. I have with me, as usual, Mr. Bobby Stealth, and we have a phenomenal show for you today. Before we get into that, go ahead and put it in the chat. Where are you listening in from? And go ahead and put some flames if you have some great energy this morning. Bobby, how you doing?
I'm doing extraordinary this morning. Hit the bike. I hit the bike this morning. So I've been doing a lot of running, a lot of gym work in the morning. So this was interesting. I got the blood circulating early this morning instead of the pump. How you doing, Junior?
Doing amazing, man. Doing amazing. As usual, guys. Just want to say that we did start a little bit later this morning. So just to sort of clarify a couple things. So for the next, I would say at least up until Friday, we will be starting around 8. So you can expect that up until Thursday. On Thursday, we'll let you know if it's 7 or 8. But um, so tomorrow you can tune in at 8 a.m., not at 7 a.m., at 8 a.m. to catch Bobby and I. So just want to clarify that. I know some people had messaged me about the time. So just to clarify again. So for tomorrow, we'll be starting at 8 a.m. All right, just so you know. But Bobby, to answer your question, man, I feel very I'm looking for the right word, man. I feel good. I'm in a very sort of reflection type mood this morning. Like I'm reflecting on a lot of things, and every now and then I take a little bit of time and I just sort of reflect and look at, okay, what am I doing? What should I be doing? What am I not doing? Stuff like that. So I'm in that sort of mood, and I'm very calm, very peaceful this morning. To answer your question.
That's amazing. And I think a lot of people may be feeling that way as we go into the second quarter. It's here. That second quarter is here. Everybody's putting that first quarter behind them and really taking what they learned from Q1 and implementing those solutions into Q2, and then really excited about what they're going to learn in Q2. So I think a lot of us are in a reflective state right now. I know I am as well.
100%. By the way, guys, what are your goals for the second quarter? Go ahead and put them in the comments. So, what are your goals? Some of your goals for the second quarter. The first quarter for me has been pretty interesting. Getting a lot of very foundational things in place for various different initiatives. So that's what I spent my first quarter doing, just setting up for success. But well, go ahead, put it in the chat. What are some of your goals this morning? And while we wait for those to come in, Bobby, I know you have a couple questions for me. I think we'll be touching a little bit on the closing side, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes. So I think a great conversation to have is the difference between closing and sales, because I've realized that you need both of them in a business, at least in my experience. But I think that closing should come before sales. So kind of just to preface this call for the people, I think that in my experience, sales is for scale and deals are to build, because when you are closing a big deal, that's like a close, like it's a luxurious experience, and it's usually a 12-month long experience where a sizable amount of financial capital is being exchanged. So that's like a deal. And then you've got sales, which people are looking for velocity and volume. So really helping the people understand how their brand is supposed to be positioned to help them attract big deals and also drive high volumes of sales at a nice velocity, because those two dynamics help build businesses and keep organizations growing and scaling. So I think having that conversation would be very exciting for the audience today.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it, guys. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna be talking about closing. Stay tuned.
The difference between sales and closing, I get this all of the time, guys. Closing is elegant. Closing is luxurious. Closing is the most profitable. Sales, high pressure tactics. No one associates car sales, right? The sleazy sales tactics with closing, because closing is elegant. Closing is excellent. You have to be a professional in order to close deals. Listen, when you do this the right way, when you learn what we're going to teach you in here, your clients will be trying to close you, and they won't let you close them for low numbers. So you'll be able to heighten, increase your profitability, increase your visibility, increase your reach, and increase your impact in the marketplace, and be confident and comfortable charging higher prices than you ever thought possible to the right people who can actually pay for them and then say thank you for closing them. So when you're young, mommy tells you to play nice. Play nice, Timmy. Let all of the other kids play too. But in business, it's not about playing nice. In business, it's about winning. It's about adding multiple zeros to your revenue. Now, of course, your staff wins. And when you win, other people win. However, when it comes to competition, you absolutely must dominate. You can't play for participation, and you can't play just to get along or just to get by, because business is serious. Business will help you to change the world, or the world will change you. Your people will either win or your people will lose based on your level of leadership, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice, and how much you know about dominating.
All right, guys, so we're back and we're going to be talking about closing this morning. By the way, if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the comments. A lot of people have been texting me, like, I have questions about this and I have questions about that. Like, guys, this is a phenomenal opportunity to get your questions answered. All right, so if you do have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments while we go along. So, Bobby, what would your first question be?
Yeah, so Junior, I know some of the deals that you've closed, like some of the sizes of these deals. And my first question for you would be, if someone is learning to close deals for the first time, like they've never closed before, like big deals, when we're talking, let's say 4, 5, 6 figure deals, no matter where they are. So to them, a 4 figure deal may be a big deal, or a 6 figure deal may be a big deal. In your experience, what is the first thing that you want to know about a prospect that you're trying to close?
So, when I think about closing is all about putting the other person's best interest at the center of the decision. So the first thing I would want to know, number one, what is motivating that person to be with me today? So that's the first question I ask. Like, what has motivated you to invest some time with me today? Why are you here? What is the problem that you're looking to solve? That would be the first thing that I would want to know. What is the problem that they're looking to solve? What is the result that they're looking for? And also, how do they want to solve that problem? Because that's very important. Like, you could want to solve a problem, but you may not like the way that it's being solved. So people want to solve problems in the way that they want it to be solved. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, number one, what is the problem? What is the vision? Like, what are you actually looking to create? What are some of the problems that you're looking to solve? What is the specific result that you're looking for? And how do you want to go about achieving that result? So that's most likely what I'm looking for.
Mm. And that's great, because a lot of times I think people get on. So one thing that I want to point out is that the big close is a series of small closes. And I think that principle, I love how Junior always says first principles. He's first principle thinking, right? So that principle of putting the customers or the prospect's best interest first works even in the initial engagement phase, because this is leading up to my next question for Junior, but I just want to connect this for you guys. If you are meeting someone in a networking event, you still want to do exactly what Junior just said, because you're trying to close them at that point on having another conversation with you. So you want to have their best interest in mind. So, hey, is it in your best interest to have another conversation with me? This is what I specialize in. And then if you get that additional close, you close them on another conversation with you, then you can close them on a series of conversations. So closing really is a luxurious process that should not be sleazy, but should actually be having the prospect's best interest at heart. So my next question for Junior is this. If you are on a closing call and you're trying to deal with objections, a lot of people get this one objection a lot of times. I want to know how you deal with this particular objection. What do you say to people that say, this is just too expensive?
That's a good one. That's a phenomenal one. So I like that. I like that question. So, okay, so closing. going back to like what closing actually is, I think closing is really and truly giving the prospect the best or the correct perspective. It's all about perspective. That's all it is. So, like I always say, Bobby, I work based on truth. That's my, if I had to have like a governing or like some kind of overall principle when it comes to business, I would say just work based off truth. So when prospects say stuff like, I need to think about it, is that the truth? Like, do you really need to think about it? 99% of the time, no, you don't. So you don't need to think about it. What you're saying is you want to get the right deal, and the right deal means when the right company gives you the right product at the right price with the right terms. That's all it means. So when you go and think about it, that's what you're actually thinking about. So when somebody says that something is too expensive, well, is that the truth? Is that the absolute truth? And the answer is no, it's not too expensive. Now, as you know, expense is relative. So what may be expensive to you may not be expensive to me. So then my question would be, well, hypothetically, Bobby, let's assume that you went ahead of this deal, the product that I sold you worked just as I said it would, and you were able to unlock this value in your business. How much money would it be worth to you? Like literally, how much money would it be worth to your business? And if they say whatever amount, so I would say, well, phenomenal. So if this works, this is gonna give you X number, X amount of money in your business, correct? Yes. So I said, okay, well, do you believe that what one can do, another can do? Meaning that if one person can do something, then you can do it too. Yes. So this means that if this product has worked for other people, okay, who are no more special than you are, who don't have, special abilities, they're not superhuman, and it's worked for them, it means that in theory it could work for you as well, right? Yes. So the truth is, it's nothing to do with the product being too expensive. It's all about, are you ready to do the work? And if you're ready to do the work and the product has worked for people in the past and it can work for you as well, and provided that it does, which it will if you do the work, it could unlock this value in your business, then is it too expensive? Yes or no? Absolutely not. It's not too expensive. We just have to work on shifting perspective to get to as close to the truth as possible.
Guys, give Junior some flames in the chat for just giving you guys the number one objection conqueror that most of you all are probably facing with your with your high ticket offer. That was masterfully done. So that leads me up to one of my next questions about closing. And as I preface this next question, this one is more about how can, because I want to help the audience with this, with the series of yeses, because what Junior just did there was he asked the prospect a series of questions that led to a series of yeses. And that's how the perspective began to shift, because he opens up and he says, well, if one, do you believe that what one can do, you can do? Prospect says, yes. He then says, well, if this is true, then would you say that if you don't do the work or you're not ready to do the work, that this won't work for you? Would you agree with that? And they say yes, so on and so forth. So my question for you, Junior, is how do you know that you're being too tough? And what I'm saying is a lot of people don't want to ask the tough questions when they're on a sales call. A lot of people don't want to make the prospect feel a little bit uncomfortable, because they feel like if the prospect is uncomfortable, then the prospect won't buy, or the prospect's not happy with the service. They think all of these things that just aren't true, because me and you've been on multiple sales calls with multiple prospects and realize that sometimes they just need a little push. So for you, how do you determine when to lean into the pain axis? And do you have any advice or insights for someone that is learning to turn up the pain at the right time without coming off as a jerk or disrespectful?
Yeah, so like I said, it all goes back to the truth. It all goes back to the truth. So I ask people, well, okay, so let's just say somebody says you're I don't know, you're pressuring me. So I would say something like, well, if you notice somebody that you loved was about to do something that you knew would hurt them, how much pressure would you apply to stop them? Like if you notice your kid was about to cross a busy street, or if something bad was about to happen to somebody that you love, you know, how much pressure would you apply to stop them from doing that? And most of the times, the answer is massive amounts of pressure. So all you equate that to is you say, hey, I notice that you're about to do something, you're about to make a decision that is not in your best interest. And that's why I'm applying pressure to you. Now, pressure is good, pressure is positive, and it's not necessarily about making people feel uncomfortable. So here's a tip. This is what I do. So at the beginning of a call, I always set the agenda for the call. That's something that I always do. Like, that's just my style. Now, at the end of that, one of the things I say is, typically when I speak with people like yourself, okay, they typically tell me stuff like, I need to think about it, I need to talk to a business partner. There's multiple reasons why they cannot get started today. So then I would say, well, my reason for being on this call is to put your best interest at whatever decision you decide to make. Now, if this product is not for you, it's 100% okay. You don't have to buy it. However, if I notice that you have a perspective that is not necessarily true or that needs a different shift, are you okay with me positively peer pressuring you into doing what's right for you and for your business? That's a question that I always ask. I always ask that question in the beginning. So I say, is it okay, or are you okay with me positively peer pressuring you into doing what's right for you and for your business? And people normally say yes. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, if you're gonna like positively peer pressure me into doing something that's right, then why wouldn't I be for that? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I do. That's a way that you just conquer that. Like, you overcome that in the beginning. So when you get to the close and you have to put pressure, apply pressure for people to do the right thing, you've already set the precedent for you to go ahead and do that. And it's all a matter of perspective. Of course, if somebody says, hey, I don't feel comfortable on the call, if they still say that, if they repeat that, then you forget about it. You end the call. Like, you're not about making people feel uncomfortable. That's not my thing. You end the call. But if they're going along with it, and if they're okay with it, if they're okay with you giving them the confidence that they need to make the decision, then go ahead. It's all about perspective. And check this out. It's not only the perspective of the prospect, it's also your perspective, because you see pressure as a bad thing. I used to think conflict was a bad thing. Conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict is about resolution. It's about coming to a resolution and hopefully coming to the truth. That's what it is. If it is true that you don't need the product, that you shouldn't be doing this, then by all means don't buy it. But if it's true that you absolutely need it, then yes, I will positively pressure you into doing what's right for you and for your business.
Man, that's a gem, guys. That's a gem. And I want to unpack that gem for those that are watching before we go to Lawana Bradford's question, which is phenomenal. And when we get there, I'll have Junior put her question on the screen. But I just want to unpack this piece really quickly. Setting the agenda is a part of what Zig Ziglar would call the tie down. And the tie down simply is how you keep the prospect from backing out of their own best interest. So the tie down is simply you setting certain phrases up and getting permission to do things before you have to do them. The tie down is about acknowledging things that you know are going to come up and handling the objection before you get there. So an example of this that's very clear would be something like, if we are able to come to a decision today and we're able to find out exactly what you're looking for, if we can do this together, is there anything stopping you from moving forward with your purchase today? That's a tie down, so to speak, because if you get to the end and they say yes to everything, yes, this is the product, yes, it's this deal, yes, 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 then it's time to finalize the transaction. They can't necessarily say no without bringing their integrity into question, because they said previously, I would be okay moving forward as long as all of these other things were met. So as you get into a closing rhythm and as you get better and better at understanding the common objections and playing the game, because it should feel somewhat like a game. Like, people like to buy and good closers like to close. Like, people don't like to feel, sold, but they do like to buy things, and they like to buy things that they need. And if you can sell them what they need in a way that makes them feel like they're having a luxurious experience, everybody wins. So I did just want to lay that out for you guys. So Junior, if you could put up the next question from Lawana Bradford, I'll go ahead and read that. So Junior, what advice would you give when you are selling to someone who is proficient in sales? For example, I can tell when someone is going through their sales model, and I always stop them because it's annoying. What would you?
Oh man, that's a great question. I've actually been on several sales calls, and then the other person. So it's like the other person is a closer. So you're trying to close a closer, and they're like, "Come on."
Yeah,
So it's like, okay, well, what I do at that point is I just go through my process. But they might say, well, hey man, I understand what you're doing. I'm a closer as well. Or somebody might say, well, I used to train a sales team, so I completely understand. And I think you're phenomenal. Da 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 da. So at that point, I just say to them, well, okay, well, I'm very happy you're in sales. So you know that this is about helping you make the right decision. So between the two of us, between two sales professionals, like what are you looking for, and really and truly, what would you need to make this deal happen? So I just cut straight to like, what do you need? Because most of the time they've already thought about what they're looking for. They've already thought about how much they need to spend, etc. They've thought about the details. So I just go straight for it. Like, okay, well, what are you looking to do? What's your budget like? And how quickly do you want to get started? Are you going to make a decision today or not? And I just ask them, and then they'll tell you. But normally, people like that, they they normally close themselves. You don't necessarily have to try to close them. You just put your best foot forward, and you let them make a decision. And sometimes they buy, sometimes they don't, and it's okay. It's
right.
okay. But to answer Luana's question, you just I would just cut through it, because they've already been there before. They know your questions and all of that. So I would just keep it real. Say, hey man, like, what are you looking to buy? Are you looking to spend? Are you serious? Like, are you really looking to get started? Or are you still looking around? Just talk to them like you would talk to a fellow colleague that's in the same profession.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Shaan gave me some phenomenal advice. So yesterday, he said 100 calls or 100 engagements could lead to one close. And the better you get, 100 engagements could lead to two closes. And then the better you get, 50 engagements could lead to one close. And the better you get, 25 engagements could lead to three closes. And what I took from that was, it's really a numbers game. And that's important to understand when you're closing deals, because sometimes we can get more attached to the close than we are to the service. And I think that's where we make a mistake. And if we are on the phone with a closer, or we're on the phone with someone that seems to be playing hardball, I don't think it's ever wise to just look at people as numbers. That's not what we do in sales or in closing. But to understand that if you're serious about your profession and you're serious about helping people, you always have another opportunity to help the next person. And I think that's really important to help us detach from the close sometimes and do exactly what Lawana said, which is shift the power differential, or turn the table, or reclaim control of the conversation. Because the moment you find yourself desperate for the close, I have found that that's when you either find yourself lowering your prices, or you find yourself in a situation where you're saying things that you shouldn't be saying. And all of those things lead to you being in a position where you may give the close away instead of losing the close altogether. So let me see. I think we might be ready for a break. Yes, it's 8:30. So I'm going to have some more questions for Junior when we come back, but I'm going to shift it slightly to sales just a bit, so that we can talk a little bit about the differences and the nuances of it, and then bring it right back to closing, because they really are slightly different. And if you don't know the difference, you could find yourself doing the wrong one at the wrong time.
I said Shaan Rye East. I'm proud. That's Shaan Rye East. Leadership is not the brand they made for us.
Listen, he brought fire and heat. He didn't hold back.
20 years down the line, what I could sell, why not serve first? Service over salary. Branding like a leader closes the gap for people who want branding. Speaking like a leader closes the gap for people who are nervous about speaking. If Steve Jobs would have speculated, we wouldn't have Apple.
He changed lives. He helped people open up their business and start their business. We are the brand.
Some people say, Shaan, should I quit my job? Mentally, yes.
As a speaker too, to be able to learn from him and watch him and game respects game. And I want to have that much game someday.
The right client, pay $500,000 for what you do. You have to be bold in your beliefs.
He has been an amazing asset to this event and a pleasure to work with. Very captivating, collaborative, worked very well with the audience.
I want to help you. Put a 0 behind your number, right?
The session was great. How he is online, virtually, he is even more phenomenal in person.
Be the face of change that you want to see. Stop asking questions and start giving demands.
The entire team has just been absolutely incredible. They are a joy to work with. They go above and beyond.
Give yourself a round of applause. Yes, yes, yes.
Nice. So we're back, guys, and I don't plan to spend too much time on sales. I plan to talk mostly about closing and ask Junior mostly questions about closing. But I do want to create at least show you guys the distinction between the two so that most people don't get confused. So to preface this, in my experience, sales requires volume, velocity, and infrastructure. And most people don't know that. And what I mean by this is when you're selling, you're probably selling a low ticket offer. So sales normally, like with a click funnel and things of that nature, like how most people see it on online, is less than 4 figures. So if you're selling something less than 4 figures, you also have to have this infrastructure to support the sales system. So that's where infrastructure comes in. You need to have the volume of the lead. So you need to have the brand attraction or potential lead lists. And then you have to have the velocity, the speed at which these transactions are taking place, and the infrastructure to support it. So sales is one of those interesting things that people sometimes put before closing, when I've realized that you got to be able to close first, because closing is for, or deals is for building. Deals build, sales scale. I remember Junior telling me years ago, sales system strategy. That's what he told me. He was like, if you're trying to scale, you need sales, systems, and strategy. And the first thing I had to do before I could even get to sales was closing. So the question that I have for Junior as a direct marketing consultant, I just want to ask him a few questions about volume, because he's responsible a lot of times for driving traffic and for getting people to open emails and converting leads and getting a sales pipeline going. Can you talk about very briefly some of the complexities or even some of the simplicities of building a sales pipeline and a sales funnel, and what the difference is between an actual sales pipeline and hunting is? Because in Branded Like a Leader, I believe this was taught as farming versus hunting. And I just broke it down for them in sales versus closing.
Right. So that's a very broad question. So you said sales pipeline, the difference between a sales pipeline and a sales funnel?
Yes. So I'll ask it like this. What are some of the differences between farming and hunting? And I'm just going to say this for the people. Farming is sales, like you're building a pipeline and then they're coming through and it's 1, 2, 3. And then hunting is closing. You're going out there, you're finding a deal, and you're closing the deal. So far we've been talking about closing deals. And now I'd like us to talk a little bit about what it takes to build a farm, to create leads, generate leads, warm leads up, and then take those leads through a sales pipeline that is very much automated versus the actual closing process, which is more aggressive and real time.
Okay, so let's preface this with a little bit of data. So you guys write this down. So 80% of sales close on the 5th to the 12th touch. So 80% of sales close on the 5th to the 12th touch. That's one thing. Now, and this is just like average. Now, if you're a better closer, obviously you close at a higher degree. Typically, about 20%, 20 to 30% of people close on the first call. So one call, one close. But most of the time, like 80% of people close between the 5th to the 12th touch. Now, when you look at hunting, hunting is you going out and you prospecting. That's what I interpret hunting to be. So you're going out, you're finding prospects, and then you're looking to move them along that pipeline. And then farming is maybe they didn't close, but now you're nurturing them back to a close. So maybe somebody wasn't ready 2 weeks ago, maybe they'll be ready in 4 weeks. Maybe they had to talk to a business partner and get back to you after a week, something like that. So you're consistently nurturing that person. You're following up, basically. Most sales are made in following up, and following up is where you need systems. That's where you need automated emails, where you need automated text messages and stuff like that. Because that could be very tough to do, especially when you're trying to do what Bobby's talking about and you have like volume coming in. It can be very tough to keep going back and try to keep going forward, closing deals while you're going back, trying to close deals from last month and things like that. But essentially, a sales pipeline is a series of steps that you are moving a prospect through on the what we call the road to the sale. So there's a road to the sale, and the road to the sale looks different for everybody. I know we've spoken about it, I think, on one episode of Breakfast with a Brand. But basically, what are the steps that your prospects have to go through before they eventually say yes? Prospecting is normally the first step in the pipeline. So you have to actually go out and greet somebody. Then you normally do what's called a needs analysis. Then you qualify them. So needs analysis, qualification, you identify the product that they need, you get them on a call, then you do what's called a trial close, meaning that you make the initial offer, then they may counter, then you enter negotiations. From negotiations, you have the write up, which is typically a contract after you settle negotiations, and then you close. And the close is not done when you collect the money. The close is done after you've delivered the product. So you product delivery, and from product delivery, you have the owner follow up. So the owner follow up means that after you've delivered the service or the product, you have to follow up with that person to ensure that they are happy with the product or the service that you delivered. And that's when the close is done. That's when you know you're done. Now, to answer your question, the difference between a sales pipeline and a sales funnel is a pipeline. A pipeline is a funnel. A pipeline is a funnel. It's just more manual. You're moving people down a pipeline. Like if I can't draw on this platform, but I could draw like a funnel to represent a pipeline with the different stages, and it gets smaller at the bottom as you move along because you're moving people down a series of steps and stages so that they could eventually get to a close. Your job is to continually move the deal forward. So if somebody's in step number one, how do you move them to step number two? If somebody's in step number three, how do you move them to step number four? If they're in number four, how do you move them to step number five? And how you eventually move them to the close. So that normally happens over time. And this is where patience comes in. You may start a deal this month that closes next month, or that closes in the next 2 months. Normally, people forget about those things. They normally don't have a pipeline, so they just forget about them. You may have somebody close after a year, but here's the thing, Bobby. If you keep stacking the pipeline, what will happen is maybe you didn't get any sales in the first month. Maybe you got few sales in the second month. But then maybe sales from the first month trickle over into the third month, and all of a sudden you have a big third month. And then you have a big fourth month, and then you have a big, so it keeps accumulating, and it takes time. That's why everybody should have a book of business. You should have a book of business, meaning that people that you can do business with at any point in time, you could reach out to, you could call when you have new products, stuff like that, past customers, current prospects that you could contact. But it's almost like compound interest. So it accumulates value over time because you're accumulating opportunities over time. More opportunities equal more sales. Very simple. So as you start to accumulate opportunities, you increase your ability or the probability of you closing deals. So that's what it's about. A
Yeah.
sales funnel is typically like a more one pager style. If I'm thinking of the right thing, like a one pager landing page kind of thing, where the conversion mechanism becomes the page and not necessarily the salesperson. So it's completely different. So you might run Facebook ads to a sales funnel that that sells, let's say, a course, or it sells some kind of coaching or something like that. But you could also sell it manually using a salesperson. So those are two different things completely.
Wow. And that's all I wanted to touch on, guys, with the sales piece. We're going to go back to closing. I just wanted y'all to see that there is a difference and that the difference is very distinct. And if you take sales into the marketplace without having those books of business, without having the mechanism in place for converting, without having a methodology for following up on leads and nurturing them, then it's really tough. And for me, I was able to grow and build my business on closing. Now, once I got to a certain stage in my business, obviously I needed to implement the systems, but I needed to have the money to do so. I needed to be able to pay people to do the things that I didn't have time to do because I was running a business. So what I recommend to everybody watching is really taking the closing seriously, because it's the foundation of early stage revenue and for scale revenue. And I'm going to use a little bit of my financial background here. But when you're getting started, you need capital. Okay. So when you're getting started, let's say you've borrowed X amount of dollars, but you've spent the money that you were able to borrow and finance. Now you've got no financing. So all you can do now is collect cash in exchange for services. So closing deals at that stage is what, one, will keep you solvent because you can pay your debtors the money that you've borrowed, and two, it'll keep operations going. So closing is essential at that stage in the business. But it's also essential, in my experience, in scaling the business, because we scaled 400% revenue for 3 consecutive years, and we did it by we added a zero to our prospect. In other words, when you do this right and you learn closing, what you're able to do is increase the product cost by increasing the value and then increasing the prospect that you close. In other words, when closing is done right, not only can you collect cash, but you can increase the prices because you can close just about any person that can actually benefit from your product. And all of this leads to my next question for Junior, which is about the setting process. So we're not going to dive too deep into this, but you cannot close leads that you don't have. So we've talked a little bit about the sales. We've talked a bit about closing. I just gave a little breakdown about how closing is necessary for cash. Junior, could you talk to us about how people that are trying to close a deal can actually find these deals? How do they create deals? In other words, how do you find people that might want to do business with you?
That's a great question. There are multiple ways to do that, but I'm going to answer the question from the perspective of somebody who may not, like, you may not be an expert at Facebook ads, you may not be an expert at Google ads. So let's say, like, just the average person that may be viewing, like, where do you find prospects? I was having a conversation with somebody about the same thing just last week, and I told them that if you go to your Google account, like, if any of you guys have like a Google email address, what will happen is Google will often keep a record of all of your contacts. And that could be contacts that you've contacted maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, several years ago. Depends on how long you've had the email address. If you go to your Google settings right now, after we get off the call, go to your Google settings and you just go over the contacts. I guarantee you'll see at least 100 different contacts. You'll see their names, you'll see their emails, and you may see their phone numbers there as well. So that's where you would start. Like, you start to look at what you call your power list, or people that are within your immediate vicinity or within your immediate reach. A great example is what I just shared with Google. They could be sitting in your phone, they could be sitting in somebody else's phone. Okay. And then obviously they'll be online. So when it comes to prospecting, there's only three categories of prospects. There's the people that you know, there's the people that your people know, and then there's the people that you don't know. You want to start with the people that you know and the people that your people know. So if you're launching something, you want to sort of look at your book, see your contacts, see who you know. And I mean, people from like maybe 10 years ago, people that you've worked with, people that you went to school with, people that you've done business with, people that you've bought from. Like, it's crazy. Like, we spend money with our vendors, and we never solicit the vendors. We never say to the vendors, hey, I'll spend money with you. How about you spend money with me? I'm launching this. So even the vendors, people that you've bought stuff from, they could be clients. If you feel like one of those people might be suitable for what you're doing, then I would pick up the phone, I would give them a call and say, hey, I'm launching X, Y, and Z. Do you, or would you be interested, or would anybody you know be interested? And then you start building a list of prospects that way. You start narrowing down by gauging the interest of the people that you know, and also the people that your people know. You start building your pipeline. Maybe you have 50 people, 20 people in your pipeline. Then you reach out, you greet those people, you introduce yourself, you do a needs analysis, you schedule a first appointment, and then you take it from there. So that's what I would do. I would look at the people that I know across all of my platforms, email, in my phone, um, everywhere, social media, people that are in my contact list, social media. I would contact them and let them know what I'm doing, and then say, would you or anybody you know be interested in what I'm doing? That's what I would do.
Man. And this is Breakfast with the Brand. So now I'm about to bring the brand questions in. You know, how does the brand help you do all of these different things easier and to the highest degree possible? So one of the things that I'd like to share is the process really quickly for those that are watching that don't know what the process looks like or hasn't really mastered their system. So normally what this looks like is IOI, so in indication of interest. So you need to know if they're interested in you. And you normally do this by either reaching out to them or putting up a post or just going through your phone and then sending them a text. If they respond to the text, that means that's an indication of interest. If they respond to your post, indication of interest. So the first place you start is by putting something out there. You can call it bait, you can call it testing the waters, whatever you want to call it, and seeing who's interested. Once you find out who's interested, the next piece of this is conversation and connection. So at this stage, you need to have a conversation and see if there's a connection. So when we say needs analysis, that's what we're saying. We're like, okay, have a conversation and see if there's a connection or make a connection. And as you make the connection and you go through the needs analysis and you realize that there's a problem here, the next thing that you do is set an appointment to provide more information. So this doesn't necessarily have to be a sales call, but most times it can be a discovery call is what they call them. And that's simply where you have you've received the indication of interest, then you moved on to the next step. You had a conversation, hit it off, made a connection, and found out that they have a problem that you might be able to solve. You then said, hey, I noticed you've got this issue. I am a specialist at the XYZ. Would you like to have a conversation where we can talk about this a little bit more? And then boom, you set the appointment. And from the appointment, you may have little questionnaires in there, a part of your qualifying phase. So between setting the appointment and getting on the call, you want to have some type of qualifier there. And that's just making sure that the person that you're talking to is indeed looking to do business and not just looking for more information. And if they are, you want to know what they're there for before they get there, right? Because everybody doesn't need a presentation. And then once you've got them on the call and you actually have the closing process that we talked about for the first half of this, that's when you lay everything out. You see if you can help them. And if you can, in fact, help them, you allow them to either close themselves or you apply positive pressure to help them make the best decision for themselves. And the last thing you do at that point is collect the cash. So with that being said, Junior, since this is a bit of a process, how does your brand and the building of a brand help people, one, find you, two, trust you enough to set an appointment with you, and three, trust your brand enough to be willing to give you cash in exchange for services? What role does the brand play in that process?
Oh man, the brand plays a big role, a huge role, because on so many levels. And in fact, there's so many levels I have to literally write them down. I want to make sure I cover everything. So number one is awareness. So before you could sell anybody anything, they have to know you exist. If you don't have a brand and nobody knows you exist, then nobody can buy from you. It's not possible to buy from you if I don't know you exist. So number one is the brand helps with awareness. Okay, so that's number one. Another one is credibility. So credibility, why is this important? People normally don't buy for one or more of five reasons. Okay, so it's all about trust. So number one, they don't trust you as a salesperson. So they say, well, I love this company, but I don't know. There's just something about him. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I just don't trust him. So number one, they have to trust you as a salesperson. Number two, they have to trust your company. So they have to know that your company is a legitimate company. And I guess that's why things like websites and social media presence is very important. Like we're talking about brand, they have to trust your company. Number three is they have to trust the product. So they have to trust like whatever he's selling me, it could actually work for me. They have to trust the product. Number four, they have to trust the deal. So they have to be sure that hey, I'm getting the right deal. Like this is the right product, but am I getting the best deal? That's number four. And then number five is they have to trust themselves. So number three is company. If you don't have a brand, if you don't have any kind of social media presence, then you lack credibility and that's going to impact your ability to sell because as soon as you message somebody, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look you up. Okay, so Bobby has messaged me. Who is Bobby Jackson? I go to Google. I Google Bobby Jackson. If nothing comes up, I'm like, he's saying the right stuff, but I don't know. Like, where's his website? We're in 2024. Where's your website? Where's your LinkedIn? So if you don't have these basic things, people are like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's saying the right thing, but there's just something I don't know. Like, he should have a website. Is he doing real business? Is he from some crazy place from around the world where there's no law? So you have to build credibility. The brand helps you build credibility. That's number two. Number three is actually value. So there have been several studies done, Bobby. In fact, I could remember um, one study that was done in a certain university where they gave students, I think it was distilled water. They gave them distilled water, and they call it so one group they call it tap water, and then another group they call it a famous brand water like Dasani or something like that. They call it a very famous brand water. It was the same water, but the group that got the branded quote unquote water, they all reported that the water was absolutely amazing. And the group that got the other water, and I think they labeled it as like tap water, they said it tasted like tap water. Same water. What was the difference? The difference was brand. People taste brand. People can taste brand. Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
It's actually a term for it, a scientific term for it, especially when it comes to clothing. Um, I think Sean discussed this actually on the last brand challenge. It's actually an actual scientific term for it where people will feel better, actually feel better, like a visceral feeling because they're wearing a brand. Like it's actually measurable, the
Wow.
feeling that they feel. So they actually feel better. So value, when you look at brand makes everything more valuable. So that means you could close bigger deals, you could close more deals, and also the end receiver of the product is more happy or happier with the product, knowing that it's a brand. So you go in, you buy a watch, let's say a regular watch, you're like, okay, cool. If you go in and you get a Hublot or you get a Rolex, you're like, I'm wearing a Rolex, yeah. So you feel better just because it's a brand. They may have been made by the same manufacturers, but because it's a brand, you actually feel better. So the end user, the end receiver, actually feels different, and the product is actually can be more valuable just because of brand. That's it. So brand helps you raise awareness and interest. It builds your credibility, and actually the person that is receiving your product actually gets more value, believe it or not. They get more value because they get more utility and they have a better feeling about what they've just bought. So brand is everything. It makes a world of difference. Makes literally makes a world of difference.
Man, hey guys, you are the brand. I don't know if y'all's ever heard us say that before, but you are the brand. And thank you, Junior, for laying that out, because it lets us know how important what we do is, as far as branding yourself and being the person. Because I I noticed that the more work I did on myself, the easier I could close bigger deals. And as we kind of roll this one out, because we've got a few minutes left, 2 minutes. I want to try to get this last piece in to have Junior answer one last question, but I do want to lay this piece out. If you are the brand, because the brand begins with you and it's an extension of you, and like you are the brand, the best thing that you can do, in my experience, is start the internal work. And that internal work will then start to take root in you and start to sprout up in the form of fruit. And those fruits can then be used as extensions of your outward brand, being your business and things of that nature. So some things that I would highly recommend that you cultivate if your goal is to build a luxury brand is character, ethics, and standards. Shaan says MVPs, morals, values, and principles. So my last question for Junior is, when you are working with someone that is developing their personal brand and they're going through their origin brand story and their discovery process, what are some of the challenges that you see people face when they're trying to develop their personal brand? And what advice do you have for them to really get to the root of some things so that they can build their personal brand faster and with confidence?
The main challenge is always the vision. It's clarity. I would say it's clarity. Clarity is the main challenge. Clarity around vision, clarity around mission, clarity around values, just clarity on a whole. And to solve that problem, I would say you need somebody on the outside. That's why you have a coach. Like it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's um, football, whether it's basketball, whether it is writing, whatever it is, you need somebody on the outside to sort of tell you what they see going on and to help you find that clarity. So that's what I would say. Um, but I know we don't have a lot of time, so I won't go too deep into it. But I will say, if you're looking to find more clarity, then just go to the link that I put on the bottom right there, www.ultimatebrandchallenge.com. We are kicking this off April 8th. Okay, so that's the 8th of April. You definitely don't want to miss it. So please come, please invite other people that you know that are interested in building a personal brand. Again, it's free to attend, 100% free, with the option to upgrade to VIP. But yeah, if you're looking for more clarity, you need a coach. That's it. That's why coaches exist. Coaches exist to give you more clarity. That's it. Coaches and consultants. So that's what you need to do, because it's very difficult unless you have that skill set to try to do that stuff yourself. And even if you can, I always recommend, finding an external source to guide you or to help you or just to be objective, because we have biases. Like everybody likes themselves, right? Hopefully you like yourself. So then you're like, I don't know if this is true about me. So you have those sort of internal biases. You need somebody that could be objective, somebody that could just tell you like it is and just be truthful with you and actually guide you to help you build your brand. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in a loop for several years. I've spoken to people that have been trying to figure stuff out for 10 years, and then I have a conversation with them for 30 minutes, and then they figure it out.
Yeah.
Literally, I've been in that situation before. So I would say, like, don't try to be a superhero. Every coach needs a coach. Every consultant needs a consultant. Everybody needs somebody. So I would say find that somebody, whoever that is for you, and then get your process going. But trying to do it on your own, and I think Einstein said it best. He says, trying to solve a problem using the same consciousness that put you in the problem is a road destined for failure. The reason why you are where you are is because of what you know. So you need to know what you don't know to get the results that you don't have. And that's not going to be found, staying in a circle or staying in a little box all on your own. Find somebody who can help you and get the process started. So that's what I would say.
Amazing. Thanks, Junior. This has been Breakfast with the Brand. I don't have anything else unless you have anything else, Junior.
No, I don't. But what I do want to say is, guys, so tomorrow morning, Bobby and I will be coming on at 8. I know a lot of people might have tuned in around 7. So I just want to give you the heads up. Look for us at about 8. Lawana says this was great. We need a part 2. Well, let's do a part 2 tomorrow then.
Right.
We can do a part 2 tomorrow. So, Luana, we're going to do the part 2 tomorrow. By the way, if you have any questions, that was a great question you asked me. If you have any other questions, I see Joel, I see Dr. Katrina, Dr. Michelle, Bradley, Tia. If you have any questions, please come to the show tomorrow and come with your questions. We'll be sure to answer them. All right. So have a phenomenal day and speak soon. Let's grow.